Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Super Sports Bros podcast. I am your host, Antonio Pop, joined on the phone by my good friend and co-host, Evan Angel. Evan, how are we doing today?
Oh, just a normal work day. Might as well just be on the phone.
Yeah, might as well. How are the Michigan roads treating you?
Not too bad. Throwing too many cases of Red Bull, but that's a day in the life.
Fair, fair. Well, we're going to get into the brunt of the playoff scenarios here for you folks, and I got a bold take. So we obviously have an unprecedented moment here in two series in two separate sports. We got the New York Knicks beating the defending champs. They're up 2-0. Then you got the Edmonton Oilers with a chance to return back to the Stanley Cup playoffs, up 2-0 against the Las Vegas Golden Knights. I predict that both of these teams will win their series in 5 games.
Wow. Wow. You are crazy, my boy.
It's a crazy morning. It's a crazy time in the world. Let's get right into it.
So what makes you think that, let's start basketball first. What makes you think basketball, that the champs go down to the Knicks, who also took down the Pistons?
Okay, so one of my things with the Knicks is that when you look at how they're playing, and you subsequently look at how their opponents playing with the abysmal shooting that has been performed by Boston, for instance, in game one, you look at their field goals and free throw ratio and their percentages 35% from the field, 25% from the three line, and then you get 14 turnovers and you win the rebounding game, and then even in game two you look at subsequently a little better from the field goal, only a percentage point better at 36 to 25, and it begs the question: is this pesky defense of New York really going to outshine Boston? Because you got guys like Jason Tatum, who obviously one of the more premier players in the league, but right now he's not playing so well. Jason Tatum in game one was a -5 plus minus. Sure, now he's a volume guy. But when you look at then the bench, subsequently Sam Hauser, who is out in this series, -7, minus then 7 again for Luke Connaught. It's just like you look at these guys and you look at even, Kristaps Porzingis for the Boston Celtics. 0 points in that first game. It's not looking right now like the Celtics are that team they were last year. They can't get rolling, and the Knicks are subsequently taking advantage of that like they did in Detroit. So that's just kind of my reasoning for why I think the Knicks are going to win in 5 games. What do you think about my analysis of kind of the defending champs, and do you think this is going to happen?
I honestly, yes, pesky defense of New York has been causing Boston fits.
Yeah.
I think Boston, if they can get it together and realize that, hey, the reason they're so good is because they're a balanced team and it's not relying on just JT.
Yes.
The thing is, they're relying too much on JT right now, and that might be their downfall. I think if they rely on spreading the wealth, I think it's going to help them a lot more and stay, obviously, in these games. You see this with New York. New York's, obviously, main focus is Brunson, but
Yes.
at the same time, they share the wealth.
Yeah.
That's why both teams are as good as they are.
Yeah, and then you look at like the bench differential for New York and Boston in this series, and you got some big players for the New York Knicks. Cameron Payne being one of them. In this series, in game two, he really kind of proved that, and even in the subsequent series before, he, really just trying to contain him. And then you got guys like Mitchell Robinson. But I think it comes down
Mitch Rob
to
is very underrated.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of guys. Like Cameron Payne hasn't really shown a lot, but his plus minus throughout the series has been good. And it's one of those things that, like, you look at this New York's Knicks team, can they withhold? I think, Boston's got a better bench, but they have to show up. and really, the subsequent players pass the rock around. As you were saying, JT can't do everything, and right now they're kind of just relying on him. You got a Jaylen Brown, so a JB to a JT. You can't have your starters really just go off for 48 minutes. It's not going to work for you in these long series. New York, Boston, very physical teams. They know each other well. I think it's going to come down to who can ever be peskier, and then who can draw more fouls. And we know that Jalen Brunson is a flopping motherfucker. I'll say it, even if they win the championship, I think he's one of the most, like if the NBA had an embellishment rule, I think Jalen Brunson Brunson would not be the player he is because the way he draws fouls. He flops, and I think subsequently
Similar to that of LeBron?
I think it's even worse. I think the flopping pandemic in the NBA is something that needs to be looked at by league officials. I think it's just getting out of hand. And I think subsequently, when you get refs calling two different ways, we've seen this in, even the NCAA tournament. When you have a ref calling the first half, very not in tic-tac, very physical. And then the second half, he comes down. We saw it in the national championship game, for instance. When you see that the discrepancies between the two halves called, that's where I get worried for, the quality of the game. Because you either call it, hey, I'm not going to call anything on the physical side, or I'm going to call tic-tac fouls. And, you got to be, solid in what you call. And I think it has to do with the refs, interfering in this. I think the refs are a big issue.
I would agree. I think if you're going to, like you said, call it fair on both sides, because obviously teams play totally different games, and obviously some teams thrive on the looseness of said ref or the looseness of the calls.
Yeah.
Using that to an advantage is not what we want in the league.
Definitely. And I think, you talk about two different teams playing two different ways. You look no further than the Oklahoma City Thunder and Denver Nuggets. Denver is Denver is a very physical team up front.
They got length.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with that. They got a lot of length. And, it's one of the things in game one, for instance, they got 63 rebounds. And I think, when it comes down to this and the high-flying offenses of both squads, you got Gilgeous-Alexander, Jokic, Murray.
Should win the MVP. Both MVP candidates playing each other.
Exactly. I mean, this is a star-studded roster on both sides. I think it's going to come down to who can out-rebound more in this series. You look at this series breakdown so far. So Denver won game one. They had more rebounds. Game two, Oklahoma City had more rebounds.
They also won game 1-2 by a last-second three by Aaron Gordon.
That being so, but then Denver in game three had more rebounds. So I think what it comes down to, and what I was trying to get to, that point is that if you have the ball more, especially off the rim, whether that's offensively or on the defensive side, you can contain Jokic. So, for instance, in game two, Oklahoma City Thunder had more rebounds. They won that game. In the two games they lost, they didn't have more rebounds. And it really just shows that Jokic is a threat. He is a massive threat to OKC just because of his size, length, and scoring ability in the paint. So, for OKC, I think a very big thing going forward is obviously containing Jokic and rebounding the basketball better than Denver Nuggets. But along with that, so say if you focus everything on Jokic, you're forgetting Jamal Murray and the rest of the star-studded cast that Denver has. So I think a big thing in this series for both squads is not faltering on defense. I think you're going to see a very interesting, I think this might go 7 games, to be honest. I think
they will too. I honestly do too.
And if OKC comes out of this series with the win, I think they're going on to win the NBA championship just because of how the Warriors and Timberwolves kind of don't give me a lot of confidence to see them beat either a Denver or OKC. So I think whoever wins this series, Denver or OKC, is going to the subsequent finals. And I could see either team coming out of it. I think it's a shootout for the win, as always. But I really do think, big players coming in big moments and in big-time games. And I think that's where, a Gilgeous-Alexander needs to step up for his city and for his team and lead his Oklahoma City Thunder to the victory here. I think OKC is going to win outright. Who do you got in this matchup winning this?
I think it's a toss-up as of right now, due to the fact, like you said, both teams, whoever wins this series will make it to the finals. I would totally agree. And I think it's also the same can be said about on the East as well for Boston, New York.
Yes.
If I'm being completely honest, it's either both sides on that. And honestly, I mean, it's both of them feel like they're already like the conference championship games. Honestly,
Yeah, no, it's really exciting to see what's going on. But if you had to pick, if I had to pin you down to a pick here, who you taking, Denver or OKC?
I want to say Denver in 7 just because
Okay.
Denver has been there, and obviously not to discredit the my hopeful MVP of SGA,
Yes.
but I really do think Denver still has that protege and obviously that experience of making it to the finals and subsequently winning it
Yeah.
already. Not discrediting anything that this OKC team has done because they've done spectacular, and obviously they're just going to get better with the fact they have so many picks and their
Yeah.
first round picks, and they're all young as hell.
Yeah.
But I think this is a great sign to show that obviously this is a young team that's going to be here for a while.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think what Oklahoma City Thunder are doing, if they win this series, and go on to win the NBA championship, I'm scared for the West because, we talked about
They
the
have
war.
first round picks.
Yeah.
And they have first round picks that are early in the draft.
Yeah, we talked
Last
about.
I checked, it's pick 10 is their first pick in the draft of next year, of this
Yeah.
upcoming year.
Wow.
So imagine winning the championship and then you're like, oh yeah, I get a lottery pick at the same time.
That in my mind is crazy because, like, think about it. If they win this year, they're turning into the young Warriors. Now, yet again, it comes into the youth question. I think will happen until they are able to solidify those, stars coming out of the NBA draft, until Gilgeous-Alexander is able to lead this team to maybe a conference finals this year, maybe a subsequent championship and an NBA championship berth. We'll see. We'll see as it goes along. But one of the things I think we come out of this is Oklahoma City Thunder is here to stay. They're going to be a problem for years to come. Now, whether Denver can weather that storm is the question. You got Denver, I got OKC. The real question is, who do you think will be playing either of these teams in the other side of the Western Conference here? We got Warriors and Timberwolves tied at a game apiece. The big news coming out of one of the games is that Stephen Curry is out. He got injured. And, one of my things, I looked at both of these games. The first game of the series was played in Minnesota. Minnesota had no energy, even though being well rested. They kind of woke up in game 2, and without Stephen Curry, the Warriors look lost. The Warriors in the first half of that game played 14 different players alone. You talk about the trade of Jimmy Butler to the Warriors and what he can do, but without a subsequent leader, because we all know Jimmy Butler is not a leader. He's a follower. He followed D. Rose in Chicago. He followed a lot of players when he played for the Heat. Obviously, he is not that guy. And I think Zach, our good buddy, can attest to that statement. But where do you think, Steve Kerr is at with this team if Curry is out long term?
I was checking ESPN. He's out for a week, so you gotta hope this series. Yeah, this series I thought going into it would go 7. Do I still think that? Maybe, but because Curry's absent, I think it's going to be at least a gentleman's sweep by Timberwolves. I know it's. I think I love this matchup. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, old school versus new school. But I just worry in the sense of Curry's injury.
Yeah.
Obviously, Jimmy can lead a team and play all the minutes and will his win.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Jimmy also did that when he was younger. Jimmy's now just approaching his 30s, if not in his 30s.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to do that anymore. So I think, honestly, the youth is going to take over, and I think we're going to get at least a somewhat youthful conference championship out west.
Okay. Yeah, you got Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert. Obviously, he can, I think, dwindle anything that Draymond Green can do in the paint.
He can give him COVID, too.
Yeah, for real. No, but then you look at the point leaders and assist leaders for Golden State. Rebounds, you got Draymond Green, but Stephen Curry has those, season leaders. So losing Curry, That's like losing a Austin Matthews in the playoffs. Like that's the equivalent, I would say, of that for a Toronto Maple Leafs. It's crazy to think that this is occurring, especially with the Warriors. But Curry's getting old, and I do agree. I think youth will take over. I got Timberwolves in 7. So we either have, the old guys, the old guard, Denver versus Timberwolves, or OKC versus Timberwolves. I like the youth movement, but we kind of talked, even in the youth movement, we got the Eastern Conference semifinals here, Pacers and Cavs. Pacers are up 2-1, which is surprising to me. I think the entire Eastern Conference matchup is very surprising when you get down to it. What is your reaction to this Pacers-Cavaliers series so far, and do you think the Pacers can beat the Cavs in a 7-game series?
Cavs look lost, especially defensively. And what's wild to say about that, you have the defensive player of the year on your team.
Yeah, you have Mobley.
Get that guy a map, please, because the guy does not know what he's doing. I mean, Tyrese Haliburton is making you look ridiculous. I mean, obviously they lost last night.
Yes.
But I saw a statistic the other day, before obviously the loss, with Tyrese Haliburton in the lineup, the Pacers are undefeated in the playoffs.
That's that's crazy in my mind. The Pacers, obviously, one of those sneaky teams in the Eastern Conference that I'd rather play than a Knicks squad. But looking at them right now with Tyrese Haliburton, he is a formidable player. But then you got guys like Miles Turner, for instance, as well.
Turner, exactly.
Yeah, so I mean, both sides, it's 1-2 right now. The offense for both squads in the Eastern Conference. The Cavs are number 1. The Pacers are number 2 with their lineup. So it is very going to be high flying offensively. Now, one of my things for the Cavs, and I don't think the Pacers are winning the series, and I'm going to tell you why right here. I feel it's very like a Pistons-Knicks matchup where the Pacers are the Pistons, and, you talk about a team that, when you get down in the playoffs and you hammer your way back like they have done in 2 games here, for instance, in Game 2, the Cavaliers go out to a 32-15 lead in the first quarter. They subsequently fall apart, okay, and implode. The Pacers go on to win that game. But in Game 3, one of my things is that the Cavs were able to win this game because of smart shooting and the more rebounds they had. Now, I understand that when you look at how these teams have played historically, Tyrese Haliburton, they're undefeated when he's in the lineup. I really do think players like Donovan Mitchell for Cleveland will be able to kind of guide this team to wins. I think,
That's who was the factor in Game 3.
Yes.
When you look at it. So if Spida can play to his potential, I think this series is going to flip.
Yeah.
But if Indiana contains Donovan Mitchell like they did Game 1 and 2, I do think it is over for Cleveland due to the fact that if you shut down their only facilitator, because, I mean, I'm not going to say Darius Garland's a bum, but a lot of the offense runs through Donovan Mitchell. Evan Mobley's not a point forward. I know he's a power forward by nature. He's not a point forward, so to speak. He's more you post up and similar to a skinny Shaq in a way.
Yeah.
Like basically the slow moving guy that gets the rebounds, gets the blocks, and just plays the post.
Yeah.
You're not going to get like him leading the offense. So if you shut down Donovan Mitchell, I think you're in a good spot if you're Indiana.
Definitely. I would agree with that. Now, let's flip sports here let's do a 180 and let's talk hockey. These playoff series. I mean, I think out of we talk about the NHL being more entertaining than the NBA, and I think the fans agree with that. But I like playoff basketball. I'm a guy that likes playoff basketball. I like playoff hockey. I think when it comes down to it, the most entertaining thing about either sports, they play a lot of games, are these playoffs. And one series that is very entertaining is the Jets versus Stars game. You got the youngest team in the league, and you got subsequently, you called it, almost were right with the, looking at the Blues and Jets series, the Jets were holding on to a prayer, got a lucky tip in, and was able to move on to the Western Conference semifinals. How do you see this game going? It's one apiece right now. The Jets just blew out the Stars in Game 2, 4-0. How do you look at this series? Nico Rantanen, obviously we talk about his greatness. He had a hat trick in Game 1. Connor has played well for the Jets. Where do you see this series going, and do you see it going 7 games?
I could see it going 7. I honestly could. I never thought it would go. I don't think it's going to go any shorter than 5. I really don't. This Jets team showed that, yeah, Connor Hellebuyck had a great season this year. Well, buddy, you looked completely lost. The Blues don't have anyone special on their roster, if I'm being completely honest. There's not a single player that I could be like, oh, yeah, that's a star. Or, no, they really don't have that key guy to get it. So the fact the Blues took you to 7 is a little concerning in my mind, just solely because when you think about it, this Blues team just made it by the skin of their teeth.
Yeah.
I think it's going to go 7. I think Dallas still has it, just because this Dallas team proved that they could play. They played the hardest team in the first round that anyone else will play.
Yeah.
Everyone thought that would be the conference championship matchup. I mean, you played arguably the hardest team round 1 and took care of them pretty nicely when it came down to it.
I do agree.
If you do that, I mean,
yeah,
what it takes.
So you have the Stars moving on in this.
I have Stars in 7.
Stars in 7. Okay, I'm going to take a bold kind of look at this. I look at how the Jets won Game 2. It was very even. They just got better puck luck. They had better puck luck in the first series versus the Blues. I like teams that are lucky. Connor Hellebuyck, obviously, everyone, showers him as the greatest American goaltender of all time. I think experience over youth. You've kind of said it all year. I'm going to kind of go on your words here. Experience over youth. I got the Jets in 7. I think they're going to surprise people. I think it's going to be an Oilers, Jets, Canadian, Western Conference matchup. I think, when it comes down to it, I see the Oilers going back to the Stanley Cup Finals. I think that,
Really?
yeah, I think that, I think it's this year that you're going to see a Toronto Oilers matchup. I hate to say it, Evan. I know it's going to break your heart. I see the Oilers winning it. I see Connor McDavid finally getting the cup and finally being in that conversation, with the uppity ups of the NHL. Not arguably the greatest player of all time, because we all know that is arguably Wayne Gretzky and Alexander Ovechkin now in that conversation with him breaking that record. But I could also see an Oilers Capitals as well. I mean, I think the
Ovi's
East...
great. Your greatness, I'll say that. Ovi is the greatest pure goal scorer. I wouldn't put him in the echelon of greatest of all time. I know that's crazy to say, but if we're talking, because here's the thing, Ovi by pure goal standpoint, yes, that's also why he was able to break the record.
Yes.
You don't see Ovi dishing out a ton of assists. Ovi's the one that's it's goals. It's
he shoots. He shoots and scores, and I think you can subsequently say that about a Connor McDavid. Now he's had some poor luck. The Oilers and Connor McDavid are up 2-0 in this series. How do you view these games so far with the Oilers being up 2-0? Do you see a sweep of the Golden Knights, who's a number 1 seed? And do you have faith in their goaltender? We talk about Connor Hellebuyck for the Jets. Stewart for the Oilers in this first series. I thought, sitting here, they were going to lose that series. But it looks like he's gotten it together. What do you think about Stewart and the Oilers' chances of beating the Golden Knights in a sweep?
I don't think it's a sweep. It might be a gentleman's sweep if we're being generous. I think Vegas might steal 1, but this is not what I expected. I mean, I did, but I didn't. I love how Stuart Skinner is good, but here's my only issue. Skinner is also kind of like the Michigan Wolverines. They're good. They have the team.
Yeah.
But they're streaky as all hell.
Yeah. Yeah,
when those streaks are broken, obviously things don't go the right way. You guys have both teams had a history of being god awful, and then obviously getting that one little break here and there. But with that being said, the streakiness of it all is what I think. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't see obviously I would love to say that they're going to make it to the final. It's going to ride on how consistent Stuart Skinner can be. And if Skinner
Yes.
can be consistent, like game after game, yeah, absolutely. But if he gets inconsistent again, I think he falters.
Yeah, and that
he does get rattled. He gets rattled, and if he gets rattled, that's where the streakiness stops.
Yeah, and then you look at guys, in this series, Zach Heidman, Leon Draisaitl. Obviously, the role players are stepping up. You got Evander Kane, you got Nugent Hopkins on this team, and then you got Connor McDavid. Obviously, I think his star-studded roster will have issues if Stewart gets shaky just because how they play. They're high flying, they're fast, they get the puck in and get it deep, and they get quick chances. I haven't really seen this team kind of bash someone's head in when it comes to keeping in the zone for 30 minutes. I think Vegas is very good. They're very fast. They have very similar play styles. They're very physical. In this first game alone here, you got 42 hits by Vegas, 33 by Edmonton. I think this is going to be a very interesting series. I like how physical these series are across the board. Now, you talk about physicality. We kind of mentioned them a little bit earlier. But who do you got before we kind of get into Carolina and Washington? Oilers and Golden Knights, who you got moving on here?
I think it's going to be an Oilers gentleman sweep. I really do.
Okay.
I mean, I think this Oilers team showed us that, hey, we're still a team that made it to the Cup final last year.
Yes.
No matter, even with Skinner playing a little shaky, if we can stay consistent with Skinner, the sky is their limit. I mean, I do still think Dallas would take them down in a series, but it would be a better matchup than we think it would be.
Yeah, no, I mean, I perfectly see what you're saying here. I think the Oilers do maybe not a gentleman's sweep. I would say 6 games, but you never know. Now let's move on to your probably favorite topic of the night, Carolina and Washington. We talked a little about earlier. We talked about the greatness of Alexander.
How is that my favorite topic of the night?
Oh, because you like talking about how Carolina is going to beat Washington. You have no faith in the Washington Capitals to win this series. Unlike subsequently me, I love Washington.
There's a team I have no faith in even more, but we'll go Caps first. That's fine.
Yeah.
I honestly think this series, it feels like a throwaway series, if I'm being completely honest.
Okay.
I mean, both teams, I'm not going to discredit either team, but it just feels like a throwaway series because, yeah, the Caps have been good, but, I feel like if they run into something, really good, they're going to fold.
Yeah.
Carolina, same thing. They're good. They have what they need, but I feel like if one guy gets injured, that team's coming crashing down. So it's just if one thing goes wrong for either team is screwed.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that obviously I like this series. It's very physical. 44 to 31 hits, similar to the Oilers in Vegas. Two teams know each other well. Two teams that do not have patience at all. I think it's going to be a very interesting series. I think this will go 7 games. And whether, Alexander Ovechkin can pull it out, that is the question of the hour. I think he does. I think he does it in 7 games. I think he's going back to the Western Conference Finals versus a Toronto Maple Leafs team. And then that series is up for grabs there. I think Toronto has the...
That series is not up for grabs. I can tell you right now. That overtime goal was complete bullshit. It was off Morgan Riley's back skate, and Marchand gets credit for it. No, that was absolute bullshit.
Hey,
it should be 3-0.
It's puck luck. That's one of the things
I know.
I kind of look at it like teams need to get lucky eventually. Florida got lucky in this series. It's 2-1 in favor of Toronto. These games have been close, and that's what worries me. Obviously, it's the playoffs. Teams are great, but I like to see it. Florida is the more physicality. Look at in Game 1, for instance. They came out hitting 51 hits to Toronto's 24. I like physical teams in the playoffs. When you hit a team more and you shoot more pucks, I think it's going to come down to who can get the puck luck. Florida got that in that subsequent game where they won in overtime. I think it's going to come down to that. I think the Maple Leafs choke again. I really do see a Florida team going back to the Western Conference Finals versus a Washington Capitals team. I don't see Toronto doing
I
it.
beg to differ because here's the thing. What has surprised me most about my Leafs, which I know this is going to sound wild, but truthfully, it's the fact that, I mean, obviously he was out with a concussion game 3, so that kind of screwed us a little bit. I mean, nothing against Joe Wall. Joe Wall's a great goalie,
Yeah.
too. But the fact that our goalie play the fact that that Stolarz is making Bobrovsky look like a junior hockey player right now. I mean, Bobrovsky could not see shit. I mean,
Yeah.
Toronto scored 2 goals in the first 30 seconds of the game 3.
Yeah.
Bobrovsky has looked lost.
Yeah.
And for being how good he is, you can't do that, especially because this Toronto team, has guys that can shoot. And if those guys shoot on you and they keep getting to your head, I mean, Bobrovsky just looked like he couldn't see a puck. I mean, you're looking at a guy who's won the Vezina a couple times, who won the Cup last year, who won the Conn Smythe the year prior. The guy is a great goalie, but the fact the guy literally could not contain either lead they ever had.
Yeah.
I mean, the only reason it went to OT, I mean, you had a chance to win it. You were up by 1, up 4-3, going in with the last five minutes of the game, and you let in something so soft that you're like, this shouldn't. No.
Yeah.
It should be 3-0. If I'm being honest, do I want it to be 3-0? No, because then I'd worry about more of a collapse. I'm fine if they take 1 because we're going back to Toronto on Sunday on Mother's Day. And if that's what it takes, that's fine. Send us back home with a chance to close out the series.
Okay. I mean, that is, looking at more of the statistics here, I kind of see what you're saying. With the penalty minutes, obviously, both teams are not converting on the power play. But if you can get a guy in front of Bobrovsky and kind of get in his head where I don't know where this puck's coming from, regardless if you score or not, that kind of kills confidence. Now, I can see that also, but one of the things I want to touch on, and it's a great thing for Toronto, and it gives me a lot of confidence the other way as well. In your case, for the Toronto fans out there, the block shot ratio comparatively to Florida.
God, it is insane. They are saving so.
Yeah,
it's everything. It's insane. I mean, this team is playing great defense. I mean, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Everything it's what, like you said, block shots. They're saving their goalies so much. I mean, it's what we needed all season to stay up. I mean, yes, we won the Atlantic, thankfully, but
yeah,
Florida collapsed also.
Yes. So you have right now, let's go through the conference finals now. Let's just see who the matchups are. You have Stars, Oilers for the Western Conference.
I would love that.
You have Leafs, Carolina. I have the opposite. I have Panthers, Washington, and then I have Jets and Oilers. So a little difference. It'll be interesting to see how they play out. Games are happening throughout the week. And we will be back with you in 2 weeks talking about the Western Conference Finals for both the NBA and NHL, and then subsequently we'll be getting a little finals talk. I want to thank all of you for joining, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Super Sports Bros podcast. From all of us over here, I'm Antonio Pop. I want to thank you for tuning in, and have a great night, folks.
Enjoy.